You're canceling my vacation. It wasn't a question. I said it flat, the way you say something when you already know the answer, and you're just giving the other person a chance to look you in the eye while they disappoint you. She didn't look away. That was the thing about Dominique Voss. She never looked away. I'm not canceling it, she said. I'm redirecting it. I stopped. I took a breath. I looked at the folder on her desk, the one with my name on the tab, the one she had clearly prepared before calling me in here. What does that mean? It means I need you in Asheville this weekend. The Harlow acquisition needs a second set of eyes on the property, and I trust yours more than anyone else on this floor. Dominique. I never called her by her first name in the office. The sound of it startled both of us. She held my gaze for exactly 1 second longer than she should have. Pack for 3 days, she said. The car leaves at 7. I want to tell you that I walked out of that office furious. I want to tell you that I had zero idea what was about to happen to me. Both of those things are true. What I didn't know yet, what I couldn't have told you standing in that doorway with my hands and fists at my sides, is that Dominique Voss was about to become the most important person in my life. And that I was already, without realizing it, halfway there. If you want to hear uncensored, too hot for YouTube stories, check out my Patreon in the description. Let me tell you about working for Dominique Voss. First, she was brilliant. Not in the way people say brilliant when they mean smart. I mean genuinely, structurally brilliant. The kind of mind that saw the architecture of a problem before anyone else in the room had even identified that there was a problem. I had watched her walk into presentations that should have taken hours and reduce them to 3 questions. And every single time those 3 questions were the exact 3 questions that mattered. She had built Voss Capital from a mid-size regional fund into one of the most respected acquisition firms on the East Coast in less than a decade. She was 41. She had done it almost entirely alone. Second, she was terrifying. Not cruel. She was never cruel. But she had this precision to her, this absolute economy of words and expression that made every interaction feel like a test you hadn't studied for. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. When Dominique Voss was unhappy about something, the temperature in the room simply dropped by 3 degrees. I had been her executive assistant for 2 years. Before me, there had been 4 others in 3 years. The last one left a note on her desk that said simply, "I am a person." Not sure that tracks here. Goodbye. I know because I found the note in the recycling bin on my first day and I kept it. Not because I thought it was funny, though it was a little funny, but because it felt like a warning I should understand before deciding whether to stay. I stayed. I'm still not entirely sure why. Part of it was the salary. Part of it was that I was 28 and desperate to prove something. And Dominique Voss's office was the kind of place where you either got very good very fast or you didn't survive. And I was determined to get very good. But part of it, the part I didn't look at directly for a long time, was her. The way she moved through a room like the room had been designed around her. The way she read documents, one elbow on the desk, chin resting in her palm, eyes moving quickly, and then going still when she found something that mattered. The way she drank her coffee, black, always, no ceremony, like it was fuel and not a ritual. She had dark hair that she wore down sometimes and pinned up other times, and I had noticed, in the way you notice things you are not supposed to be noticing, that she only wore it down on Fridays. I don't know why that detail lodged itself in my brain. I don't know why I counted. We had a rhythm, the 2 of us. I knew her schedule better than she did. I knew she always took her calls standing up and her lunch sitting down. I knew she needed 20 minutes of silence before any meeting that involved more than 6 people, and that she would not ask for it. She would simply become very still and very quiet, so I had learned to build it into the day without announcing that I was doing it. She knew things about me too, in the way attentive people absorb information without meaning to. She knew I took my coffee with too much sugar. She knew I was working on my MBA at night. She knew my mother lived in Phoenix and that I called her every Sunday, and that the calls sometimes made me quieter for the rest of the day. She had never said any of this out loud. She just acted around it. She stopped scheduling Monday morning calls with the West Coast partners, because once, in my first month, I had mentioned my mother liked to call Sunday evenings, and I sometimes needed a minute to decompress. She never brought it up. She just changed the schedule. That was the thing about Dominique. She paid attention in a way that was almost unbearable, and she did it without ever making you feel watched. I had been telling myself for 2 years that this was just a professional relationship, that what I felt in that office was respect, admiration, the specific gratitude of someone who had been given a chance and knew it. I had been very convincing. Right up until the Friday she took my vacation away, and I felt, before the anger, before the frustration, a sharp and treacherous flash of something that felt dangerously close to relief, because it meant I would be with her for 3 more days. I went home that evening and stood in front of my open suitcase for a long time before I started packing. I didn't examine the feeling. I was very good at not examining things. I packed anyway. The drive to Asheville takes about 4 hours from the city. Dominique drove herself. That surprised me. I had expected a car service, a driver, the usual insulation between her and ordinary travel. Instead, she was standing beside a dark green Range Rover at 7 sharp, coffee in hand, wearing a cream-colored sweater and dark jeans, her hair, and I noticed this. I couldn't help noticing. Down. It was a Friday. I put my bag in the back without saying anything about it. She said good morning. I said good morning. We got in the car. For the first 40 minutes, she made calls. I had my laptop open on my knees, working through the Harlow property documents she had sent over the night before, and I could hear her on the phone, clear, direct, authoritative. And I was making notes and not looking at her and telling myself this was a normal work trip. Then she ended the last call, and the car went quiet. Not awkward quiet, just quiet. The kind that had room in it. "Have you been to Asheville before?" she asked. "Once, in college. My roommate had family there." I paused. "We went to a music festival. I got sunburned and ate too much funnel cake." She made a sound, low, brief, almost a laugh. Not quite. "Funnel cake," she said. "In my defense, I was 22 and made entirely of bad decisions." That time it was a real laugh. Small, contained, like she had let it out before she could decide not to. I felt it in my chest like a small struck bell. I looked back at my laptop. The words on the screen did not rearrange themselves into sense. We stopped for gas around the 2-hour mark. She got out to fill the tank, and I got out to stretch and walked into the gas station and stood in front of the snack display for an unreasonably long time, because I needed something to do with my hands. I bought a bag of pretzels and a bottle of water. I bought a second bag of pretzels without deciding to. When I got back to the car, she was already in the driver's seat. I handed her one of the bags through the window. She looked at it. Then she looked at me. "Pretzels," she said. "Gas station pretzels," I said. "They're different from regular pretzels. They have a specific quality." "What quality?" "They taste like a road trip." She was quiet for a second. Then she took the bag. "Thank you, Sloan." I got back in the car. I looked out the window. The mountains were starting to appear on the horizon, blue and soft and enormous, and I thought, this is fine. This is completely fine. My name in her mouth sounded different than it did anywhere else. I had been aware of this for a long time, and had been filing it carefully under things I was not going to think about. The filing system was beginning to feel unreliable. The property was outside of town, a historic inn on 14 acres that the Harlow estate was looking to sell. We arrived in the early afternoon. The main building was white-framed and wide-porched, set back from a gravel drive with old oak trees on both sides. The mountains were visible from every angle. I stood on the gravel with my bag at my feet and looked at it. "It's beautiful," I said. I didn't mean to say it out loud. Dominique stopped beside me. She was quiet for a moment, and I glanced at her, and she was looking at the property with that particular expression she got when something had surprised her. A slight stillness around the eyes. Something that softened her before she put her composure back on. "Yes," she said. "Just that. We checked in. The woman at the front desk, warm, white-haired, the kind of person who seemed to have been born specifically to manage a place like this, had a moment of visible uncertainty when she pulled up our reservation. "We have you in the Magnolia Suite," she said carefully. "The booking note says 2 guests, but only lists 1 room. I want to make sure." "That's fine," Dominique said. I looked at her. She was looking at the woman at the desk. "It's a suite," she told me, without looking at me. 2 rooms. I confirmed the layout when I booked. "Of course," I said. My voice sounded very normal. "Good." The suite was on the 2nd floor, at the end of a wide hallway with old photographs on the walls. The sitting room in the middle was shared. 2 armchairs facing a fireplace, a small writing desk, windows looking out at the mountains. The bedrooms were on either side. There was a door on each end that could close. I put my bag in my room. I stood at the window for a moment. The mountains did not care about my filing system. They were just there, enormous and patient and very old. I went to find Dominique. She was already at the writing desk with the property documents spread out in front of her, reading glasses on. I had seen her with those glasses maybe 3 times in 2 years. She didn't like wearing them, and a pen in her hand. "The eastern parcel has a discrepancy in the survey," she said without looking up. "3rd page, bottom left. Tell me if you see what I see." I pulled up a chair. I leaned over the documents. Our shoulders were almost touching. I could smell her perfume, something warm and slightly cedar-edged that I had noticed before, in her office, in elevators, in the specific air that followed her into a room. "The lot line," I said. "It's shifted from the 2019 survey." "By how much?" I measured with my finger. 11 feet, maybe. Could be a resurveying error, or someone moved it intentionally before listing. She finally looked up. We were very close. She was still wearing the glasses. I had a sudden, absolutely unreasonable awareness of exactly how close we were. That's what I needed to know. She went back to the documents. I sat there for a half-second longer than I should have. Then I reached for the next page and started reading. That evening we ate dinner in the inn's restaurant. Just the 2 of us at a table by the window. The mountains going dark outside. Candles on the table because it was that kind of place. We talked about the property for the first 30 minutes, and then, slowly, we stopped talking about the property. She told me about the first acquisition she had ever closed, at 31, a small manufacturing company outside of Pittsburgh that everyone told her was a mistake. She had turned it around in 14 months. "Were you scared?" I asked. She considered that. Not the way people consider questions to decide how to answer. The way people consider questions because they actually want to be accurate. "I was certain," she said. "That's not the same as not scared." But the certainty was louder. "How do you get that?" "Get what?" "That kind of certainty." She looked at me across the table. The candlelight was doing something to her face that I was actively trying not to pay attention to. "You make a decision," she said. "And then you commit to it fully enough that your body eventually believes you." I picked up my wine glass. I took a sip. I thought about the filing system. "What if the decision is wrong?" I asked. "Then you make another one," she said. "There is no version of this where you don't have to keep deciding." I nodded. We were quiet for a moment. Outside, the first stars were appearing over the mountains. "I'm sorry about your vacation," she said. It was so unexpected that I looked up. She was looking at her glass. I know you'd been planning it for months. It's fine, I said. Automatic. It's not fine, she said. I know it isn't. I needed you here, and I took you away from something you wanted, and I'm aware of that. The fact that she was saying this, the fact that she had thought about it, I didn't know what to do with it. I'll reschedule, I said. I'll make sure you can, she said. We looked at each other across the candlelit table, and something happened in the air between us that I didn't have a name for yet. Something quiet and a little frightening and entirely real. I looked away first. Outside, the mountains held the dark, the way they had been holding things for a very long time. That night, I lay in the bed in the Magnolia Suite and stared at the ceiling and had a very firm internal conversation with myself. I listed the facts. I was her employee. She was my boss. Not just a boss, the person who had hired me and trusted me and built me into someone who knew how to do this job. There was a wall between us made of professionalism and power, and the very legitimate and important understanding that you don't do this. You don't let yourself feel this. I listed the reasons it was manageable. It wasn't real. It was proximity, exhaustion, the strange intimacy of being in an unfamiliar place with someone you spent most of your waking hours with. It would pass. It always passed. I listed the ways I had been misreading things. The 20 minutes of silence she built into my schedule, that was efficiency, not care. The way she knew about my mother's Sunday calls, that was just observation, the same way she observed everything. The way she had said, I trust yours more than anyone else on this floor, that was a professional assessment. The way she had laughed in the car, the small, real laugh that she let out before she could stop it. I added that one to the list and then took it back off. I fell asleep sometime after midnight. In the morning, she was already on the porch when I came downstairs, coffee in both hands. One mug hers, one mug clearly waiting for me, set on the railing at the precise spot where I would reach for it. And the mountains were pink gold in the early light, and she turned when she heard me and said good morning, and I thought, quietly and with something close to despair, I am in so much trouble. The survey team is coming at 9, she said. I know. I picked up the coffee. Too much sugar, already made. I confirmed last night. She looked at me. You confirmed last night? What time did you? It's fine. I wanted to make sure. She was quiet for a moment. Sloane. Really? It's fine. She looked at me for another beat, and I had the feeling she was going to say something. Something specific. Something that would require me to respond. Something that would make it harder to keep the filing system intact. Then she looked back at the mountains. The eastern parcel is going to be the problem, she said. I know, I said. I've been thinking about the lot line. And just like that, we were working again. Safe in the language we both knew. The survey team came at 9. We spent the morning walking the property with them, through the oak grove at the front, along the creek that ran through the eastern edge, up toward the ridge where the original farmhouse had been rebuilt into a guest cottage. Dominique walked ahead of me most of the time, asking questions of the surveyor in that direct, focused way she had, and I was 2 steps behind taking notes and being extremely professional. But there was a moment, on the path along the creek, when the ground went soft from a recent rain, and she turned to warn me, and her hand came out without any thought at all and caught my elbow, and I felt the steadiness of her grip like something that had been missing and had finally returned. Careful, she said. Thanks, I said. She let go. We kept walking. I wrote nothing in my notebook for the next 5 minutes. I didn't realize until later. In the afternoon, after the survey team left, we sat on the porch again with the documents and worked through the revised numbers. Her reading glasses were back on. At some point she took them off and set them on the table and rubbed the bridge of her nose, a small private gesture that I don't think she knew I noticed. And I thought, you work too hard. I have known that for 2 years. and I have never once said it. There were so many things I had never said. I had gotten very good at not saying them. Later, she poured us both a glass of whiskey from the bottle she'd brought in her bag. She always traveled with a good bottle, one of the things I had learned. And we sat in the armchairs by the fireplace in the sitting room between our 2 bedrooms, and the fire was going because the mountain night was colder than the city. And I thought, this is the most at home I have felt in 2 years. That frightened me. Not the feeling itself, but the precision of it, the specificity. This is what told me it wasn't just proximity and exhaustion. You can't fake precision like that. You can't construct it from nothing. Tell me something I don't know about you, she said. I looked at her. She was watching the fire. She said it the way she said most things, directly, without preamble, like the question was already fully formed before she opened her mouth. That's a big ask at 9 o'clock on a Saturday, I said. The corner of her mouth moved. Humor me. I thought about it. I almost didn't take this job. She turned her head. Why? Because 3 of your last 4 assistants left within 6 months, and the 4th one left a note. I paused. I found the note in the recycling bin on my first day. She was quiet. What did it say? That she was a person. I looked at my glass. She seemed to feel that wasn't tracking in your office. Dominique was quiet for a long moment. And you stayed. I stayed. Why? I thought about the real answer. I thought about how long I had spent not saying real answers in this specific woman's presence. Because I thought I was right, as it turned out, that the note was about her, not about you. People leave hard jobs because they're hard, not always because the person asking is the problem. She looked at me. The firelight was warm on her face. You gave me more credit than that at 28 years old, she said. I gave you exactly the amount of credit you'd earned, I said. I'd read everything before I interviewed. I knew who you were. And now? She asked. 2 years in. Do you still think you were right? Something about the question, the directness of it, the quiet weight in it, made my breath go careful. I held her gaze. Yes, I said. More than then. The fire made a soft sound. Outside, the wind moved through the oaks. She looked back at the fire, and something in her expression was doing something I hadn't seen before. Something open and a little careful, and not entirely under control. Tell me something I don't know about you, I said. She was quiet for so long I thought she wasn't going to answer. I almost sold the company, she said at last. 3 years ago, I had an offer, a very good offer, and I had a very serious conversation with myself about whether I was building something real or just proving something to people who weren't paying attention anymore. What happened? I turned it down. She took a sip of her whiskey. Because I realized I'd built something I actually cared about. Not to prove anything. Just because it was mine, and it was real, and I wasn't finished with it. I thought about that. About what it meant to build something real, and decide it was worth keeping. What made you realize that? I asked. She turned her head and looked at me, and the look lasted a beat longer than a professional look lasts, and something in my chest went very still. Someone reminded me of why I started, she said. I didn't ask who. I wasn't ready for the answer. We sat by the fire until it burned down to embers. We talked about the company and her plans for the Harlow property and the book she was reading, a biography of a woman architect from the 1920s who had built 140 buildings and been largely written out of the history of her own profession. And we didn't talk about any of the things that were sitting, unspoken and patient, in the room with us. When I finally said goodnight and went to my room, I sat on the edge of the bed in the dark for a while and pressed my hands flat against my knees and breathed. The filing system was gone. I understood that now. There was nothing left to file. I had been in love with Dominique Voss for, I didn't know how long. That was the thing about slow fires. Oh, you don't notice them until they've already taken everything. And now I was alone in a room between two mountains with nothing between us but a sitting room and a door. And she had just told me something true that she did not tell people. And I had told her something true back. And I had to get through one more day and then go back to the city and figure out how to live in my own life. I lay down. I stared at the ceiling. I thought about her hand catching my elbow on the path. I thought about the way she had said, "Someone reminded me of why I started." I thought about the way she had looked at me after. Sleep did not come quickly. But before we continue, if you made it this far, it's because you know exactly what this feels like. That moment when you realize that what you've been calling something safe and manageable has been something else entirely, for longer than you want to admit. So go ahead and hit that like button right now. It helps me keep bringing stories like this one to you. And if you're not subscribed yet, subscribe and turn on the bell, so YouTube lets you know when a new story drops. Now tell me in the comments, have you ever had to share a small space with someone and realized, somewhere in those hours, that everything was about to change? Did you let yourself feel it, or did you file it away and pretend? Write it for me. I read every single one. And tell me, what city are you watching from? I'll heart every answer. Okay, back to our story. Sunday morning arrived gray and soft, the kind of mountain morning that feels like the world is still deciding what it wants to be. I woke early. I pulled on jeans and a sweater and went downstairs and out to the porch, thinking I would have an hour alone with the fog and the mountains and the specific kind of quiet that helps you think. Dominique was already there. Of course she was. She was standing at the porch railing with a mug, looking out at the valley below. She was wearing a dark gray pullover, and her hair was loose, and there was something in the way she stood, the particular stillness of someone who had been there a while and was deep inside their own thoughts, that made me stop in the doorway. She turned at the sound of the screen door. "Morning," she said. "Morning." I went to get my coffee from inside. When I came back, she hadn't moved. I stood at the railing a few feet from her and we looked at the mountains together and didn't say anything. And the silence was one of the ones that have room in them. "It's beautiful," I said. I watched the fog move through the valley. "What time do we head back?" "Whenever we want," she said. "The documentation is done. I don't need to be anywhere until tomorrow morning." I looked at her. "You never don't need to be anywhere until tomorrow morning." She turned to look at me. Her expression was doing the thing again. The thing from last night. The thing I had been cataloging and not naming. I cleared the day. I looked back at the mountains. My heart was doing something loud and very inconvenient. "Why?" I asked. She was quiet for long enough that I almost let it go. Filed it. Moved on. "Because I didn't want to go back yet," she said. I didn't say anything. I didn't trust what would come out. "Sloan." Her voice was quiet. Careful in a way I had never heard it. "Yeah," I said. Not a question. She set her mug down on the railing. She turned to face me fully. I turned to face her. She looked at me the way she looked at problems she was solving. Completely, without flinching, without the small social performances most people insert between themselves and difficult truths. "I owe you an honest conversation," she said. "I want to have it. But I need to know first whether this is something you want to have." My mouth went dry. "What kind of conversation?" "The kind where I stop pretending that the reason I brought you this weekend was purely professional." The fog moved through the valley. An oak tree made a sound. "It wasn't purely professional," I said. My voice was very steady. I was distantly proud of that. "No, she said. It wasn't. I looked at her. She was holding my gaze with the focused, absolute attention she brought to everything that mattered to her. And what I felt in that moment, standing on a mountain porch in the early morning fog, was not surprise. Not exactly. It was recognition. Like something that had been translated imperfectly for 2 years was finally being given back to me in the original language. The lot line, I said. She blinked. Something shifted in her expression, confusion moving towards something else. What? You said you needed a second set of eyes on the lot line discrepancy. I looked at her. You could have sent anyone. You have 8 analysts on this floor who are qualified. You've sent them on property reviews before. She was quiet. You could have sent anyone, I said again, but you canceled my vacation and brought me. Yes, she said, because of the lot line. A pause. The lot line needed a second opinion. Dominique, she looked at me. You found the lot line discrepancy 6 weeks ago, I said. I saw the original survey file date when you sent over the documents. You've had it flagged for 6 weeks. The mountain morning was very still. Yes, she said finally, quietly. I felt the honesty of it move through me like a change in temperature, like stepping outside, like something that had been held for a long time being let go. So, I said. So, she said. Tell me the honest version. She turned back to the mountains. She was quiet for a moment, not the deflecting kind of quiet, but the kind where a person is deciding how to say something true in a way that respects the truth. 2 years ago, she said, I interviewed 11 candidates for the position. I hired you because your work was exceptional. That was the entire reason. I was precise about that. I waited. For the first 8 months or so, I was precise about it, she said. And then something shifted. I don't know the exact moment. I don't usually miss exact moments. What shifted? I asked. She turned back to me. I started looking forward to Monday mornings. The simplicity of it, the absolute unadorned honesty of it. I looked at her. That sounds insufficient, she said, for what I'm trying to tell you. It doesn't, I said. It sounds exactly sufficient. She studied my face. That careful, thorough attention. I spent a long time deciding whether to say anything, whether it was appropriate, whether the structure of our goal. She paused. Whether the power differential made this something I should keep to myself regardless of what I felt. And? I asked. And I decided I would rather tell you and let you decide what to do with it than keep not telling you and live another 2 years on Monday mornings. She held my gaze. That felt more honest, even if it was also harder. I thought about precision, about certainty, about a woman who had once said, "You make a decision and commit to it fully enough that your body eventually believes you." I thought about a filing system that had been falling apart for months. "Dominique?" I said. "Yes. I found the lot line discrepancy 6 weeks ago, too, on the same review. I flagged it in the shared drive, and then I saw you had already flagged it." She went very still. "I didn't say anything because I didn't know what it meant," I said. "And then when you canceled my vacation and said you needed me on this trip specifically, I thought." "What did you think?" she asked. Her voice was quiet, intent. "I thought I should be furious about this, and I wasn't." I looked at her. I was relieved. The word sat between us in the cool mountain air. Her whole face changed, not dramatically. Dominique Voss did not do dramatic, but something in her went quieter and more open at the same time, and it was the most undone I had ever seen her, and it was the most herself she had ever looked, and I understood then that those two things were the same thing. I have been trying to be professional about this for a long time, she said. I know, I said. So have I. It has been exhausting, I said. A soft, startled breath of a laugh. Her hand on the railing was inches from mine. Yes, she said. I looked at the space between our hands on the railing. I looked at her. I think you should know, I said, that I'm not going to file this one away. She looked at me. File it away? I have a system, I said, for things that were easier not to think about. I've been using it for a while in your general direction. The corner of her mouth moved. How's the system working? It broke somewhere around the pretzels. She laughed. Fully this time. Low and real and completely uncontained. And it was the most beautiful thing I had heard in 2 years. And I had heard it already that weekend, and each time it did the same thing to me. The pretzels, she said. The pretzels, I confirmed. She was still smiling. Not the controlled, almost smile, but the full one. The real one. The one I now understood she kept for very few people. And she turned to face me fully. And she said, simply and precisely, the way she said everything that mattered. I need you to know that whatever happens next, it doesn't change what I think of your work. You are the most capable person I have ever worked with. And if this is not something you want, I will respect that completely. And we don't have to... Dominique, I said. Speak of it again. It won't affect... Dominique. She stopped. I want to, I said. She looked at me. That complete, unfiltered attention. I have wanted to, I said, for longer than I knew. The fog was beginning to lift in the valley below. The mountains were clearing. The morning was turning gold at the edges. She reached over and covered my hand on the railing with hers. That was all. Just her hand over mine. Warm and steady and exactly right. We stood there like that for a long moment, the mountains opening up around us. And I felt, for the first time in years maybe, completely, entirely, exactly where I was supposed to be. Going back to the city was different from leaving it. We took the long way. She suggested it, and I said yes without hesitation, and neither of us pretended that was a normal work trip decision. The mountains gave way slowly, reluctantly, the way beautiful things do when you're trying to leave them. In the car, she drove, and I sat in the passenger seat, and we talked differently than we had talked before. Not about the company. Not about the acquisition. We talked about the biography of the architect she'd been reading, and about the music festival in Asheville I'd been sunburned at, and about the specific way certain places feel true to you before you understand why. We talked the way people talk when the first wall has come down and there's still a whole conversation ahead, but you can see it now, the whole shape of it, and it doesn't frighten you. At some point, she put on music, something old and unhurried, guitar and a low voice, the kind of music made for long drives and mountain roads. I have to ask you something, I said. All right, she said. That first month, after you changed the schedule for the Monday morning West Coast calls, was that... I paused. Was that because of what I'd said about my mother? She was quiet. I thought it was efficiency, I said. I told myself it was efficiency. It was partly efficiency, she said. Partly. Mostly, she said. I didn't want you to come in on Mondays looking the way you looked after hard Sunday calls. She kept her eyes on the road. It was a small thing. It wasn't a small thing, I said. She glanced at me. It was a schedule adjustment. Dominique, I said, you do not make schedule adjustments for efficiency. You make them because you have decided something matters. I have watched you for 2 years and I know the difference. She was quiet again. Outside, the Appalachian foothills rolled past. Yes, she said finally. It was because of what you said, I looked out the window. I thought about 2 years of a filing system and how much I had been putting in it, how full it must have been. I thought about her changing a schedule because she didn't want me to come in on Mondays looking sad. "Thank you," I said. "You don't need to thank me for—" "I know I don't need to," I said. "I want to." She didn't say anything else, but I saw her hands ease on the steering wheel, and that was enough. We got back to the city in the early evening. She pulled up outside my building and the streetlights were coming on, and the city was doing the thing it does at dusk, going gold for a few minutes before going gray. She cut the engine. We sat there for a moment. "Monday morning," I said. "Monday morning," she said. There was a question in both of those sentences, and we both knew it, and neither of us was pretending otherwise. "I want to be clear about something," she said. "I'm aware of the position I hold, and the position you hold, and I don't want you to feel—" "I don't feel anything I don't want to feel," I said. "I haven't since I understood what I was feeling." She looked at me. "And what I want," I said, "is Monday morning, and everything after that. I want to find out what this is in the full light of our actual lives, and I want to do it knowing I chose it." She held my gaze. "Knowing I chose it," she repeated. "Yes," I said. Something settled in her face. The final release of something held very carefully for a very long time. "Then Monday morning," she said, "and everything after." I got out of the car. I got my bag from the back. I stood on the sidewalk and she rolled down the window. "Sloan." "Yeah." "The pretzels were very good." I laughed. "I told you. They're different." She smiled. The full one. The real one. The one I now knew was mine. And she drove away into the gold-gray evening. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment. My building was behind me. My life was ahead of me. The full version of it. Not the one I'd been quietly building around a filing system and a Monday morning schedule. But the real one. The true one. The one I was going to walk into with my eyes open. I had spent 2 years being very good at not saying things. I was done being good at that. I thought about what she had said on the porch about certainty, about making a decision and committing fully enough that your body eventually believes you. My body already believed me. I picked up my bag and went inside. There's a difference between a life you're managing and a life you're living. I had been managing mine for a long time. Good at the job, good at the routine, good at the filing, safe in all the ways that are actually just a slow kind of going numb. And then one Friday, she took my vacation away, and I drove 4 hours through mountains with a woman I had already loved without knowing it. And I finally stopped being good at hiding it. The most courageous thing I ever did wasn't something that looked like courage from the outside. It was a bag of pretzels on a gas station stop, and a hand on a porch railing, and 4 honest words. "I want to, too." That was enough. That was everything. If this story found something true in you, write Intira in the comments. I'll know you made it all the way here with me. And if you want to keep going, another story, another woman, another love that almost didn't happen, it's already waiting for you on the screen right now. Big love, and I'll see you in the next one. If you want to hear uncensored, too hot for YouTube stories, check out my Patreon in the description.